All right, welcome to part 2. We are still trying to find the zeros or x-intercepts of a cubic, but these are a little bit more difficult because you can't factor them. So if I try and factor this problem, I've got 4 terms. I could factor by grouping, split it down the middle. I could take out an x squared from my first 2 terms. I'm left with a 3x minus a 7. Your 3x minus a 7 has to repeat, but if you notice, the only way to get a 3 from an 18 would be to multiply by a negative 6, but a 7 times a 6 is not an 8. So I cannot factor this problem. Okay, so I need another way to figure out how to solve this. So if you cannot factor it, we learned we can look at the graph and we can find one x-intercept. If we find them all, cool, we're done. But I guarantee you, you probably won't be able to do that. So I need to head to my graphing calculator and let's graph this. I've got 3x cubed minus 7x squared minus 18x. That's not right. Minus 8. All right, I've graphed this. Now, this right here does not look pretty because it's a fraction, okay? So the nicest x-intercept that I see is at a 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? You can also go to your table. Table's in blue. If you hit second graph, I can see my zeros right here for 0. And then, hey, look, there's another one, negative 1, 0. So I know 2 answers immediately off the bat. I know x is a negative 1, and I know x is a 4. Positive 4. So I just need one more answer. Okay? All right. So to do this, we are going to use division to find the depressed polynomial. So if you divide by something, that polynomial is depressed. So you get to pick your favorite x value. Okay? I'm going to use this negative 1. So if x equals negative 1 on my graph, what that means is x plus 1 is the factor. So think about when we were dividing polynomials. If it crossed at a negative 1, in my equation it will be a positive 1. So step 1, I'm going to divide by a factor. Okay, so let's do my box method. I've got an x plus a 1, and I'm going to put my 3x cubed in my first box. So I'm going to divide everything by an x plus a 1. Okay? On the top, you will have 3x squared to multiply to get you 3x cubed. And then I'm going to multiply my 3x squared by a 1 to get 3x squared. Now, I don't want a 3x squared in my problem. I want a negative 7. So I need to force something in the diagonal to get me a negative 7. So a negative 10 x squared and a positive 3 will get me to a negative 7x squared. On the top, I will have to multiply by a negative 10x to get the product that I needed of a negative 10x squared. Find your bottom box. Negative 10x times a 1 is a negative 10x. Now, do I want a negative 10x? No, I want a negative 18. So I would need a negative 8x in my diagonal to combine to get a negative 18. At the top, to multiply by an x to get a negative 8x, I would need a negative 8. And then my last box, a negative 8 times a 1 is a negative 8. And that makes me happy because I do not have a remainder, and that's what I wanted. Okay, so I knew x equaled 1 was an x-intercept. Therefore, x plus 1 was a factor, and then I factored it. So I've turned this problem into x plus 1 times 3x squared minus 10x minus 8. So I used one factor to find the other factor. Okay? I'm not done. I have to solve. This one, super easy to solve. Switch the sign, you get negative 1, which I already knew. This one is a quadratic. Okay? The other way to solve a quadratic that we learned in Module 2 is the quadratic formula. So I have to use the quadratic formula to help me find my two possible x-intercepts. So let's do this. My a is a 3, my b is a -10, and then my c is a -8. Because your a is here, b is here, c is here. Let's plug it in our formula. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Okay? So now we just have to type it in the calculator. So let's do that. So if you remember from Module 2, to make a fraction, we're going to hit alpha, y equals, enter. I'm going to type this in just how it looks. However, I cannot type a plus minus. I will just type in a plus. Square root, -10, squared, minus 4, times 3, times -8, all over 2 times 3, or you could just put 6. All right, hit enter. That's one answer, 2/3. Okay, so quadratic formula immediately gave me the other answer. X is going to cross at a 2/3. Now to get your other answer, you just need to go up in the calculator twice, hit enter, copy and paste it, hit the left sign a million times, and try the minus. And their other answer was -4, which I already knew. So there are my 3 answers to solving this cubic. Okay, so if you cannot factor it from the start, that's probably meaning you have a fraction or a decimal in your problem. So you first have to divide by a factor that you find in the calculator. We used -1, you could have used 4, but I already knew my 2 answers. I was just using the quadratic formula to find my 3rd one. Let's do one more, because that's a whole lot of work. Next one, again, find all the zeros of this cubic. I will give you a hint, we can't factor it. So let's use our calculator. I'm going to graph this to find at least 1 0. All right, I got this after graphing. -1 looks like a nice answer, and then 10 looks like a nice answer, but to double check, hit second graph. Yep, I was right, -1 is a nice 0. And 10 is also a nice 0. So again, I've got 2 out of my 3 answers just by looking at my graphing calculator, okay? I just need to figure out this final answer, which is between a 0 and a 1. I just have no idea what it is, okay? So let's divide. I am going to use this answer because multiplying by 1 is nice. So the factor would be an x plus a 1 because in my equation the sign is opposite. So let's draw our box. My first term goes in my first box. And let's divide everything by an x plus a 1. I will get 3x squared. Bottom box would be 3x squared. I do not want a 3x squared, I want a -28. So I need a -31, because -31 plus a 3 will get me to a -28. The top will be a -31x. The bottom will be a -31x again, because I'm multiplying it by 1. I don't want a -31, I want a -21. So I'm going to have to put a positive 10x in the diagonal to force a -21. The top box would be a 10. The last box would be a 10. Now I went through that pretty fast because we've already been through dividing. Now that tells me that 3x squared minus 31x plus 10 is a factor. So if I were to write this in factored form, I already know this answer is a -1. I need to do the quadratic formula to solve this quadratic to find my final two answers. Okay? So my A value, my B value, my C value. So x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Okay? I'm going to give you all a second to type that in. I'm going to press pause and do that myself. All right, so if you look here, if I type it in with the plus sign, I got the answer 10, which, no surprise, I already knew. To find my second answer, copy and paste, change that plus to a minus, and I get 1/3. So that was the decimal I was looking for. So I got x equals 10 and x equals 1/3 from the quadratic formula. So my final answer would be my original one, x equals -1, x equals 1/3, and x equals 10. Okay? So right off the bat, you knew two answers. Unfortunately, you just had to do all this lovely math to find that fractional answer. And that's how you solve cubic equations when you cannot factor them. Whole lot of work. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, you can practice. Thanks for watching. Ooh, actually, what if you're like Miss Nator? I don't want to ever do any of that. Here is your shortcut. You know one answer is -1. You know one answer is 10. You just need to find this 0 right here. If you hit second trace, remember in Module 1 when we found the 0, all you gotta do is make sure your blinky dot is close to your x-intercept. Go to the left, hit enter. Blinky dot to the right of the x-intercept, and it will tell you the answer. As long as you know that 0.3 repeating is 1/3, you don't have to do any of that. I repeat, don't do any of that. Your calculator can do it for you. So again, second trace, you're looking for the 0. Make sure it's to the left of your x-intercept, and then to the right, and hit enter one more time, and it'll do it for you. Woohoo! Thanks for watching.